You meet all kinds out here, but I've never seen talent like that. A true professional. The way she used her words, her very specific technique. It was a masterclass in getting what you want. She knew exactly what she was doing from the moment she got in the cab until the very end. It was a performance I will never, ever forget, no matter how hard I try. All right, mix on. It's 3:17 in the morning. Somewhere in Indiana, I think. Got a load of frozen pork bellies that need to be in Gary by sunrise. And I'm parked in the back corner of a Waffle House lot, trying to drink coffee that tastes like boiled regret. This is my life. But that's not why I'm recording this. I gotta get this down, because what just happened in this cab? I'm not sure if it was a crime, a confession, or some kind of goddamn performance art. But it sure as hell wasn't the transaction I was expecting. It all started an hour ago, right here. The rain was coming down in sheets, the kind that makes the whole world feel like you're at the bottom of a dirty aquarium. I was just about to kill the lights and get my mandatory 2 hours of shut-eye when I see this shape, scuttling between the puddles, hugging the shadows. Not the usual type you see working the lots, the ones with tired eyes and a practiced, weary gait. This one was wearing a trench coat that probably cost more than my last set of retreads, and little boots with heels that kept sinking into the soggy gravel. Looked like a baby deer trying to cross an interstate, all panicked and clumsy. Knock, knock, knock. 3 sharp little raps on my passenger side window. Not the slow, lazy knock of a fellow driver. Not the rhythmic, businesslike tap of a lot lizard. This was an amateur's knock. Urgent. Desperate. I hit the switch, and the window hissed down a few inches, letting in a spray of cold mist. A face peered in. Youngish, maybe late 20s, with mascara running down her cheeks like tiny black rivers. She looked like she'd just lost a fist fight with her own emotions and was about to demand a rematch. Can I help you? I asked, keeping my voice flat like the landscape. Rule number 1 out here, never sound interested. Interest costs money. Please, she said, her voice a theatrical whisper, trying to fight a sob. It was the kind of voice that was used to getting its way. I'm in a desperate situation. I need to get to Chicago. Tonight. My whole life depends on it. Asterisk internal monologue. Here we go. The overture. It's always a tragedy. Always a deadline. The script's a classic for a reason. You gotta give them that. Asterisk. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my coffee, letting the silence hang in the air between us. Chicago's a long way off, lady. And this ain't a taxi service. The meter on this thing runs on diesel and disappointment. She leaned closer, pressing her face to the gap in the window. The rain dripped from her hair onto the sill. I know that. But I can make it worth your while. I'll do anything. That's the line. The magic words. The universal ignition key to the whole sordid transaction. But then she added a little flourish I hadn't heard before, a strange, artisanal twist on the oldest sales pitch in the book. She bit her lip, tried to look both desperate and enticing, and whispered, I'll give you a private tasting session of the most exquisite flavor profiles you've ever experienced. I almost choked on my coffee. A tasting session? Flavor profiles? That's a new one. This girl wasn't your standard truck stop talent. This was some kind of artisan, a specialist. My mind started working, translating the jargon through my own cynical dictionary. She wasn't selling a product, she was selling a bespoke experience. High-end, niche market, got it. Probably has a business card and a tiered pricing structure. I gave it a 2-second beat just to let her sweat it out in the rain. Then I thumbed the lock. Chunk. The sound echoed in the cab. A heavy, final punctuation mark. Get in, I grunted. Before you drown. She practically fell into the cab, dragging the smell of wet pavement and expensive floral perfume in with her. She slammed the door shut, and the roar of the rain was instantly muffled, leaving just the low hum of the engine and the sound of her shaky, performative breathing. The space, my space, suddenly felt a whole lot smaller. She was in. The deal, whatever the hell it was sealed. Asterisk internal monologue. All right, sweetheart. Let's see the menu. The meter's officially running. Asterisk. I dropped the rig into gear, the whole cab shuddering as we merged back onto the slick, empty ribbon of I-65 North. The wipers slapped a frantic, hypnotic rhythm against the glass. For a couple of miles, the only sound was that and the hum of the tires on wet asphalt. She was just sitting there, staring out the window, looking like a soggy, tragic poet. I figured I'd let her start the negotiation. The first one to talk about price always loses. It's the law of the road. Finally, she let out a long, shuddering sigh. "You have no idea what this means to me," she said, turning her big, tear-smeared eyes on me. "I've dedicated my life to this, to the pursuit of pure sensation." Asterisk internal monologue. Sensation, right? At least she's a professional. Takes pride in her work. Probably has a website. Asterisk. "It's a calling," she continued, her voice gaining strength, shifting from victim to evangelist. "Some people just consume. They don't experience. They don't understand the nuance, the build-up, the anticipation, the explosive finish when all the elements come together in perfect harmony." "Uh-huh." I grunted, keeping my eyes on the road. The jargon was getting thicker. Sounded exhausting, to be honest. But if she wanted to talk up the product, build the brand, that was her business. Then she started moving. First, she made a little noise of disgust and kicked off those ridiculous high-heeled boots. They hit the floor mat with a damp thud. She wiggled her toes, which were painted some kind of dark, moody purple. "God, that's better," she breathed, a sound of profound relief. "I need to be comfortable to perform at my best, to really get in the zone and connect with the moment." Asterisk internal monologue. "Okay, phase 2. Getting comfortable. Standard procedure." She's setting the stage, trying to make it feel less transactional and more like an experience. "It's all part of the show." Asterisk. I watched out the corner of my eye as she started fumbling with the lever for the seat recline. The passenger seat in a Peterbilt isn't exactly a luxury recliner. It protested with a loud clank as she finally found the release, and the seat shot back a few inches. She sighed again, this time a long, drawn-out sound of contentment, and laid her head back, staring up at the cab's ceiling. That was it. That was the signal. Clear as a green light. In my world, a woman kicks off her shoes and reclines her seat in your passenger side at 3 in the morning. She ain't looking to discuss the weather. She's opening the door for business. And she was right, you can't exactly perform at your best, doing 70 down the interstate with other rigs rolling by. You need a little privacy, a little atmosphere. Up ahead, I saw the sign for the old Kankakee River Scenic Overlook. It's been closed for years, just a forgotten patch of pavement hidden by a thick stand of overgrown pine trees. Perfect. I flicked on my right turn signal. The rhythmic click-clack filled the cab. She didn't even seem to notice, lost in her own world. I geared down, the engine braking roaring to life, and swung the big rig off the highway. The smooth hum of the road was replaced by the low, angry crunch of tires on neglected gravel. I pulled us deep into the darkness, under the cover of the dripping pines, and killed the headlights, leaving us in the dim, green glow of the dashboard instruments. Asterisk internal monologue. All right, we're off the clock and the stage is set. Time to see what this exquisite flavor profile is all about. Asterisk. I killed the engine. The sudden silence was heavy, broken only by the soft drumming of rain on the roof. The green glow of the dash cast long shadows across her face, making her look serious, almost solemn. This was it, the boardroom. I unbuckled my seatbelt, a loud, definitive click in the quiet cab, and turned to face her. Time to finalize the terms of service. "All right," I said, my voice a low rumble. "This private tasting session. Let's talk about the specifics." I leaned back, giving her the floor. In my experience, this is where they lay out the menu. The options, the upcharges, the hard limits. It's a negotiation, and I was ready. She sat up, her eyes wide and luminous in the dim light. She took a deep, shaky breath, like an actress preparing for a death scene. I braced myself for the pitch. "It was a Fiat 500, she whispered, her voice cracking with an impossible amount of emotion. "A little white one. I called him Franco." My brain stalled. The gears just stopped turning, seized up completely. Franco? I waited for the rest of it. The part where Fiat 500 was some weird, newfangled code for a service I hadn't heard of. Maybe a two-girl special? A Franco-American thing? My mental dictionary of road slang was coming up completely blank. A car, I asked, my voice a full octave higher than I intended. He was my chariot, she wailed, all pretense of composure gone, exploding in a wave of grief. My vessel, and I failed him. I ran him dry. He's just sitting back there, abandoned on the shoulder of the highway, all alone in the dark. The ice water hit, a freezing, sanity-shattering torrent of it. Fiat 500 wasn't a code. It wasn't a euphemism. It was a car, an actual, tiny Italian car. The transaction I was expecting, the whole meticulously constructed reality I'd built in my head over the last 20 minutes, evaporated like steam off hot asphalt. You ran out of gas? I said slowly, the words feeling foreign and stupid in my mouth. It's not that simple, she snapped, suddenly defensive, her grief turning to indignation. I couldn't just put any filth in him. He requires a 93 octane rating minimum. The last 3 gas stations only had 91. Do you have any idea what the wrong octane can do to a European fuel injection system? The notes would be all wrong. The combustion profile would be unacceptably coarse. It would be a violation. I just stared at her, blankly. My mind was a blue screen of death. The intricate, cynical logic I'd used to navigate my entire life had just been short-circuited by a woman in a trench coat having a mental breakdown over premium gasoline. The silence in the cab was no longer thick with illicit anticipation. It was thick with the suffocating presence of pure, unadulterated, first-world insanity. The scent of her expensive perfume suddenly seemed cloying, predatory. Asterisk internal monologue. Oh no. Oh, sweet mother of God. This isn't a lot lizard. This isn't a working girl with some quirky new sales pitch. This is a crazy person. I've locked a genuine, certified, high-octane crazy person in my truck. Asterisk. And in that moment, I realized the terrifying truth. A simple transaction I can handle. Money for services rendered. That's clean. That's business. This was something else entirely. This was going to be complicated. And it was going to be a very, very long ride to Chicago. I just sat there, my hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to get my bearings in this new, insane reality. I think she took my stunned silence as an invitation to elaborate. A very big mistake. You don't understand, she began, her voice now taking on the tone of a patient explaining a complex disease to a very slow-witted child. This isn't just a dinner. This is a pilgrimage. I have a reservation at Aperture. In Chicago. Chef Jean-Pierre Moreau. He doesn't cook food. He curates experiences. He is a poet, and his medium is flavor. Asterisk internal monologue. A poet whose medium is flavor. Right. And I'm a novelist whose medium is a 16-wheeler full of pork bellies. Asterisk. I have been on the waiting list for 14 months, she continued, her voice rising with the monumental injustice of it all. 14 months. My blog, The Discerning Palate, my entire brand is built on authenticity, on being there for the pivotal moments in the culinary world. This meal, this review, it was supposed to be my masterpiece, my magnum opus. And now, because of the substandard petrochemical infrastructure of the American Midwest, it's all turning to ash. She was gesticulating now, her hands fluttering in the dark cab like frantic, captured birds. I was just watching this human train wreck unfold, my brain still trying to find a logical handhold. No one is this unhinged over a meal. It doesn't make sense. There has to be a cover story, something she's not telling me. People don't risk their lives hitching rides with truckers in the middle of a storm for a plate of fancy fish. Then she leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with a desperate, conspiratorial light. I even brought my own enhancements, she whispered. My blood ran cold. Enhancements. Now we're getting somewhere. This is a language I understand. She fumbled with the oversized designer purse on her lap. I tensed, my hand instinctively moving toward the tire iron I keep wedged beside my seat. She unzipped the bag and pulled out a small, hard-shelled case, the kind you'd use for expensive electronics or scientific equipment. She clicked it open with a sound that seemed way too loud in the small cab. Inside, nestled in custom-cut foam, were about a dozen small, glass vials filled with different colored crystalline powders. White, pink, gray, even black. "This is my emergency tasting kit," she said, her voice filled with a reverence that was genuinely unsettling. "I never go on a pilgrimage without it. Look." She picked up one of the vials, holding it up to the dim dash light. It was full of a coarse, pinkish powder. Himalayan pink salt, harvested by 14th-generation monks during a full moon. The minerality is transcendent. She picked up another, a vial of fine black powder. Black lava salt from Cyprus, smoked over ancient olive wood. The finish has notes of melancholy and distant shores. I stared at the vials, at the different colored crystals. My mind, which had been floundering in a sea of nonsense, suddenly found its footing. A hard, cynical clarity clicked into place like a well-thrown switch. Asterisk internal monologue. Oh, I get it now. I finally get it. Tasting kit. Flavor profiles. Enhancements. Pilgrimage. Notes of melancholy. This isn't salt. She's a mule. A high-end drug runner. That fancy-ass restaurant in Chicago isn't a restaurant. It's a drop point. The chef is the buyer. And these little vials, this is artisanal, boutique-grade cocaine or meth or God knows what for the city's elite. I'm not driving a food blogger. I'm hauling a damn narcotics trafficker. Asterisk. A slow grin spread across my face in the darkness. Transcendent. I repeated, nodding slowly, appreciatively. I bet it is. I finally understood the game, and I was right back in control. My newfound sense of clarity lasted for about 10 glorious, delusion-filled miles where I was the sharp-witted trucker who'd seen through the quirky facade of a sophisticated drug mule. I was in a movie. I was playing the game. Then, she opened her tasting kit again, and my entire theory began to unravel. "The key to a discerning palate," she announced to the cab, as if delivering a lecture, "is to constantly prime and challenge it. We must recalibrate." Before I could ask what in God's name she was talking about, she'd opened one of the little vials, the pink monk salt one, and poured a few crystals into the palm of her hand. Then she licked her finger, dabbed it in the salt, and stuck the finger in her mouth with a look of pure, unadulterated ecstasy. She hummed, her eyes closed. Subtle notes of iron, a whisper of primordial ocean. The texture is assertive, yet forgiving. She then held her salt-dusted hand out to me. "Your turn. Cleanse your palate." I stared at the offering. Asterisk internal monologue. Is this part of the act? A loyalty test? Does she want me to snort her imported monk salt meth cocaine thing? Off her hand. In a moving vehicle? "Lady, I've got a CDL and a schedule to keep." Asterisk. "I'm good," I said, my eyes fixed on the road. "Gotta keep my hands on the wheel." "Nonsense," she insisted, shoving her hand closer to my face like an overeager child with a worm. "Driving is a full-body sensory experience. The vibration of the engine, the scent of the diesel, the taste of the air. You're just not being mindful. Here." She was so insistent, she actually lunged forward and, before I could react, dabbed her salty finger right on my lips. It was a bizarre, invasive little gesture. The salt tasted, well, it tasted like salt. Maybe a little salty. "See," she said, settling back in her seat, triumphant. "Your whole perception is shifting, isn't it?" My perception was that she was a lunatic who had just violated my personal space with her finger salt. The invasion didn't stop there. She decided the cab's ambience was all wrong. First, she complained about the air freshener, the little green pine tree I've had hanging from the mirror for 6 months. She unhooked it and, with a look of profound distaste, sealed it in a Ziploc bag she produced from her purse, declaring it an olfactory brute. Then she replaced it with a small silk pouch of what she called hand-harvested lavender from Provence, which made the whole cab smell like my grandmother's linen closet. Then came the music. I had some classic Johnny Cash playing, low and steady. She shuddered, physically shuddered, and asked if I had anything less guttural. Before I could answer, she'd plug her phone into my AUX jack. Suddenly, the cab was filled with the sound of what I can only describe as wind chimes having a seizure during a yoga class. Asterisk internal monologue. She's changing my truck. My sanctuary. My office. My goddamn home. She's Dekashin G my cab, and replacing it with French flower smells and music for anxious dolphins. This isn't a mule. This is an infestation, asterisk. The final straw was when she reached over and adjusted my main cup holder, the big one, the one molded perfectly to my favorite thermos, and wedged her stainless steel water bottle into it. Perfect, she sighed. Hydration is the cornerstone of sensory acuity. That cup holder was my last bastion of personal sovereignty, and she took it, without asking. It wasn't just an annoyance anymore. It was a personal affront. It was war. The dolphin music was starting to work its way into my skull. It felt like my brain was being power-washed with sandalwood and pan flutes. I was done. I couldn't take another minute of it. My drug mule theory was dead and buried under a pile of lavender and pretension. She wasn't a criminal mastermind. She was just an insufferable weirdo who was one artisanal salt lick away from a padded cell. I was about to tell her the ride was over at the next exit when her phone, which was resting on the dash, let out a pathetic little beep and died. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she sighed, exasperated. "My battery. Do you have a charger? It needs to be a USB-C. My entire itinerary is on there." I grunted, fishing a tangled octopus of cables from my glove box. "Got one here somewhere." No, not that," she said with a dismissive wave. "Those generic ones can cause power surges. I have my own." She produced a ridiculously fancy-looking cable braided in some kind of rose gold fabric. "Could you just plug this in for me? The port is so far over." I snatched the phone and the fancy cable from her hand, my patience worn down to a single, frayed thread. As I leaned over, fumbling to jam the USB end into the port near the gear shift, her phone screen flickered to life. It must have had just enough juice left to receive one last message. And I saw it. The notification banner, clear as day under the dash lights. It was a text from a contact named JP. The message read, "Asterisk confirmation for tonight. The package is essential. Client is very particular about the cut. Needs to be pure, no stepping on it. 12 portions. The Himalayan pink is the key. Don't be late. High rollers are waiting, asterisk." My blood turned to ice. Then almost immediately to fire. Every single piece fell into place with the force of a tectonic plate shift. It was all a cover. An ingenious, ridiculously elaborate cover. Package. Cut. Pure. Stepping on it. Portions. High rollers. This wasn't food talk. This was the damn dictionary of narcotics. The whole flaky food blogger persona was an act of pure genius. Who would ever suspect this woman of trafficking? She was a walking, talking cloud of misdirection. The tasting kit was her sample case. The pilgrimage was the delivery. And JP, Chef Jean-Pierre, was the buyer. I was a fool. I'd let her lavender-scented insanity blind me to the truth I'd seen right from the beginning. I calmly plugged the phone in and handed it back to her, my expression a perfect mask of bored indifference. "There you go," I said. "Thank you," she said, completely oblivious, already tapping away at the screen. I settled back into my seat, a new, cold energy coursing through me. I wasn't an annoyed chauffeur anymore. I was part of a high-stakes criminal enterprise. This rig wasn't just hauling pork bellies. It was hauling a major narcotic shipment. My irritation vanished, replaced by a sharp, calculating focus. I was no longer her victim. I was a player in the game. And the first rule of the game is to make the other person think you're not playing at all. I reached over, my movements slow and deliberate, and turned the volume knob to the right. The dolphin music got a little louder. "You know," I said, looking over at her with a hint of smile, "this stuff is actually starting to grow on me." We rolled on through the pre-dawn gloom, the dolphin music a constant, tinkling reminder of the lie I was now living. I was playing my part, the simple, agreeable trucker, lulled into submission by her weird energy. Inside, my mind was a steel trap, clicking away, analyzing every move. The stakes were higher now. This wasn't just about getting an annoying passenger out of my cab. This was about navigating a potentially dangerous situation without tipping my hand. About an hour outside Chicago, the glow of my fuel light started blinking. "Gotta stop for diesel," I announced. There's a big flying J up here. Best get it done before we hit city traffic. A flying J, she said, the name dripping from her tongue like it was something toxic. Is the coffee there organic? It's coffee, lady. It's hot and it's brown. That's as organic as it gets. I pulled the rig into the massive fueling island, the air thick with the smell of diesel and hot rubber. The place was buzzing, a city unto itself, full of drivers stretching their legs, yelling greetings, the whole place humming with the business of a road. This was my world, my turf. We went inside to pay and grab something to eat. Or at least I did. She trailed behind me like I was leading her through a leper colony, her nose wrinkled in disgust at the sight of roller grill hot dogs and shrink-wrapped pastries. We ended up at the diner counter. I ordered the trucker's special, 3 eggs, a slab of ham, hash browns, and a biscuit with gravy. She stared at the menu like it was written in ancient Sumerian. "Excuse me," she said, flagging down the waitress, a woman named Flo who looked like she'd been pouring coffee since the Truman administration. "I don't see any gluten-free options. Or anything foraged." Flo blinked slowly. "Honey, the only thing we forage for around here is the ketchup bottle." "Wallaby." My passenger let out a long, suffering sigh. "I'll just have a glass of hot water with a slice of lemon. And can you ensure the water is filtered? Reverse osmosis is preferable, but I'll settle for carbon filtered if that's all you have. And what's its pH level?" Flo just stared at her for a solid 5 seconds, then turned to me. "She with you?" I just nodded and buried my face in my coffee. This was a new level of humiliation. I could feel every eye on me. I saw Gus, a guy I'd run with since '09, just slowly shake his head and turn back to his steak. In that single moment, I wasn't one of them anymore. I was the guy who let the circus into the church. In their world, in my world, you don't bring this kind of nonsense into a truck stop. It's a violation of the code. You eat the food, you drink the coffee, you respect the place. She was treating it like a joke. And by extension, she was making me a joke. The hot water and lemon arrived. She produced a small dropper bottle from her purse. "Birch tree essence," she explained to no one. A few drops helped to center the chi and purify the toxins from the municipal water supply. Gus snorted into his pancakes. I saw another guy shake his head and mutter something to his buddy. My face was burning. I was one of them, a brother of the road, and I'd brought this alien into their sacred space. She wasn't just a weirdo anymore. She was a liability to my reputation. We got back in the cab, the silence thick with my simmering rage. She was completely oblivious, humming along to the dolphin music, checking her phone. "Those people were so coarse," she said with a little shiver. Asterisk internal monologue. "Those people are my people. And you just took a dump in our church. This is no longer about drugs or money. This is personal." Asterisk. The sun was starting to burn through the gray morning haze as the Chicago skyline appeared on the horizon, a jagged line of steel and glass. We were on the final approach. My only goal now was to get to the drop-off, dump this human cargo, and disappear. Let JP, the chef, deal with his salt-shaking drug mule. I just wanted my truck and my life back. She, however, had other plans. "Okay," she said, suddenly all business. She'd pulled up a map on her phone and was tracing a route with her finger. "We're almost there. The restaurant is in Lincoln Park. You'll need to take the Fullerton exit." I glanced at my own GPS. My delivery was at a distribution center on the south side, near Midway. Lincoln Park was at least 15 miles north, right through the gut of downtown. In a semi, during the beginnings of morning rush hour. "No can do," I said, my voice flat. "My drop is south. I can let you out at the next exit. You can grab a cab from there." She looked at me as if I'd just suggested she wrestle an alligator. "A cab? Absolutely not. I can't risk it. The package is too fragile. The vibrations from a taxi's suspension could compromise the crystalline integrity of the salts." Asterisk internal monologue. Crystalline integrity. Right? You don't want some cabbie jostling your high-grade narcotics and turning them into dust. "Got it. Asterisk. That's not my problem," I said, flicking my turn signal to merge into the right-hand lane for my exit. "This is my stop. The ride is over." "No," she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "It's not. You don't understand what's at stake here. My reputation. My entire future. This delivery has to be perfect. You will take me to Lincoln Park. Lady, I have a delivery window. I miss it, I get fined. I'm not taking a 3-hour detour through downtown Chicago in a 53-foot trailer for you or your magic salt. End of story. I took the exit ramp, the rig leaning hard into the curve. That's when she broke. Her face crumpled. The sophisticated, condescending food blogger vanished, replaced by a petulant, red-faced child. "You can't do this to me," she shrieked, her voice echoing in the cab. "I trusted you. I offered you an exclusive experience. Do you have any idea of the privilege you've been given?" Tears started streaming down her face. Not the sad, mascara-running tears from the Waffle House. These were angry, weaponized tears. This is the most selfish, unprofessional, and utterly boorish behavior I have ever encountered. You are a Philistine, a brute. You are ruining my life. She was full-on hyperventilating now, sobbing and screaming about her brand and Chef Moreau's trust. It was a Category 5 tantrum happening 2 feet away from me while I was trying to navigate a semi-truck through unfamiliar city streets. I just stared straight ahead, my jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. My refusal was absolute, but the sheer volume of her meltdown was creating a pressure in the cab that felt like it could blow the windows out. An engine of rage against a wall of ego, and neither one was backing down. The tantrum eventually sputtered out, replaced by a hostile, suffocating silence. She had retreated to her corner, arms crossed, staring out the window with the burning intensity of a wronged queen. I just drove, focusing on the road, my own anger a cold, hard knot in my gut. I pulled into the receiving lot of the distribution center, a sprawling concrete wasteland of loading docks and idling reefers. I backed my trailer into Bay 17 with practiced ease. The hiss of the air brakes the only sound between us. "All right, about a 2-hour unload here," I said, not looking at her. "There's a gatehouse at the front. You can call a car service from there. This is as far as I go." She said nothing, not a word. She just opened her door, slid out of the cab, and slammed it shut with a force that shook the whole frame. Good riddance. I watched her in my side mirror, a small, furious figure in a trench coat, stomping her way towards the front gate. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for the last 100 miles. It was over. I filled out my paperwork and settled in for the wait. About an hour later, I decided to do my walk around, check the tires. As I came around the front of my cab, I saw it. Tucked neatly under my driver's side wiper blade was a piece of paper. It was a professionally printed invoice. It was from the Discerning Palette, LLC. At the top, in an elegant, looping font, it read, "Invoice for consultation, services rendered." Below it was itemized. Astérisque olfactory ambiance curation. Cap deodorising service $75. Asterisk oral atmosphere enhancement. Custom playlist selection $120. Asterisk on-road palette priming session. Himalayan pink salt $250. Asterisk beverage purity consultation. Water filtration analysis $50. Asterisk navigational co-piloting and logistical support $300. At the bottom, in bold, was the grand total, $795.00. Underneath that, she had scrawled a note in sharp, angry handwriting. Asterisk payment due upon receipt for services rendered. My time and expertise are valuable. Since you refused to complete the final phase of our agreement, this is the fee for breach of contract. You can Venmo me. Asterisk, and she'd included her Venmo handle. I stood there in the dirty, diesel-soaked lot, staring at the piece of paper. The sheer, monumental audacity of it. The breathtaking, supernova-level entitlement. She had, in her twisted little mind, gone over my head to the laws of commerce themselves to punish me for my insubordination. She'd performed an act of quiet, calculated, bureaucratic warfare. The annoyance, the confusion, the dark humor of the situation, it all burned away. All that was left was a silence in my mind that was as vast and cold as the concrete lot around me. The game was over. She wasn't a puzzle to be solved or a danger to be navigated. She was a problem to be dealt with. I was her judge, and court was now in session. The dock foreman banged on my door. "You're all clear, driver. Paperwork's on the hook." I gave him a thumbs up, my movements calm and deliberate. The 2-hour unload had given me time. Not time to rage, but time to let the anger cool and harden into something else. Something solid and heavy. Purpose. I started the engine. The familiar rumble, a comforting presence. I'd thrown her little silk pouch out the window the second she was out of sight. It was my space again. I pulled out of the distribution center, now deadheading with an empty trailer. The invoice in my pocket felt like a block of ice against my chest. It was a declaration of war from a world I didn't understand, a world where you could bill someone for annoying them. It wasn't about the money. It was about the principle. She hadn't just insulted me. She tried to weaponize her own brand of insanity against my reality. As I merged back onto the Stevenson Expressway, I made the call. "Yeah, Bobby? It's me. Yeah, it's been a while. Listen, you still got that side business going? The specialty towing service." There was a pause, then a gravelly chuckle. "Depends who's a skin. For you? Maybe. What's the situation?" "I got a situation on I-65 southbound," I said into the phone, my voice steady and low. "Just north of the Kankakee River. A little white car. A Fiat Cinquecento. Abandoned on the shoulder. Yeah, it's a real piece of work." I gave him the exact mile marker. I knew it by heart. After the call, I pulled into a small truck stop. I walked inside, bought a lukewarm coffee, and sat in a booth by the window. Then I called her. She answered on the first ring, her voice sharp and impatient. "What?" "Change of plans," I said, my voice a perfect imitation of a defeated man. "Look, I can't have a bad report go on my record. That invoice thing, it's not worth the fight. You win. I'll take you to your restaurant." There was a stunned silence. Then, "Well," she finally said, her tone dripping with smug satisfaction. "I'm glad you've finally seen reason. I'm at the front gate of that dreadful industrial park. Be here in 10 minutes. She hung up. I drove the 5 minutes back to the distribution center. She was standing there, looking like a queen waiting for her tardy chariot. She got in without a word, placed her purse and her case of salts on the seat, and stared straight ahead. She had won. I pulled back onto the highway and headed north toward downtown Chicago, toward Lincoln Park. "The restaurant is called Aperture," she instructed. "It's on North Halsted Street. Don't miss the exit this time." "Won't happen again," I said, my voice flat and obedient. Inside, my mind was a hawk circling high above the highway. I was hunting. We drove for 20 minutes, her smug silence filling the cab. Then I saw it. Off to the right, a huge, garish, sun-faded sign. It featured a cartoon pig in a chef's hat, holding a massive rack of ribs. The text in giant, cartoonish letters read, "Sloppy's Hog Heaven. The best damn ribs in Chicago. All you can eat. Next exit." Beneath the pig, in a smaller font, "Now hiring dishwashers and prep cooks. Apply within. No experience necessary." A slow, cold smile spread across my face. It was perfect. It was poetic. Without a word, I flicked on my turn signal and took the Damon Avenue exit. "This isn't the exit for Halsted Street," she said, her voice sharp with suspicion. "What are you doing?" "Aperture, Halsted Street." "Got it," I replied calmly. 2 blocks later, I pulled up in front of it. Sloppy's Hog Heaven. It was even more glorious in person. A low building with painted pigs on the windows. The air smelled of hickory smoke and grease. I pulled the rig right up to the front entrance, blocking traffic, and hit the air brakes with a final, deafening hiss. "We're here," I announced. She stared out the window, her face a mask of pure horror. This is a barbecue shack. This is not Aperture. What is the meaning of this?" I turned to her, my expression perfectly neutral. "This is your stop," I said. Then I reached across her, grabbed her fancy purse and her hard-shell case of narcotics, and tossed them out her open window onto the greasy sidewalk. "What are you doing?" she shrieked. "You gave me an invoice," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "You believe services should be paid for. I agree. The ride from Indiana wasn't free. And since you don't seem to have any cash, you're going to have to work it off." I pointed a thumb at the now hiring sign. "Looks like they're looking for help." I figure about a month of scrubbing barbecue sauce off plates should just about cover your bill. Her jaw dropped. She looked from me to the restaurant, sputtering, utterly unable to form a sentence. And another thing, I said, leaning in, that package you're so worried about, your little Fiat, it's on its way to a scrapyard in Joliet. My buddy Bobby runs a special towing service, specializes in abandoned property. I figure your little chariot will get crushed into a cube of artisanal metal about the same time Chef Jean-Pierre is wondering where his Himalayan pink is. The color drained from her face. The reality of her situation finally hit her. "You can't just leave me here," she wailed. I just smiled. I reached into my shirt pocket, pulled out her invoice, and tore it into tiny, satisfying pieces, letting them flutter onto the floor like confetti. "Consider my bill paid in full," I said, "for the exquisite flavor profile of this experience." And with that, I put the truck in gear and pulled away, leaving her standing on the sidewalk in front of Sloppy's Hog Heaven, a frantic, shrieking statue of pure, impotent rage. I didn't even look in a mirror. The cab felt clean, quiet, mine. The sense of peace was immediate and absolute. As I merged back onto the expressway, the sun finally broke through the clouds. Asterisk internal monologue. She lived in a world made of words. Ambience, curated, notes of melancholy. Out here, reality is made of 16 tons of steel and 1,000 miles of asphalt. And sometimes, the only lesson that sticks is the one that tastes like diesel fumes and desperation. Asterisk. I flicked on the radio. Johnny Cash started singing about a boy named Sue. And for the first time in 12 hours, I felt like